airport. Cream and myself will be meeting tomorrow with some stakeholders, our friends at East Devon, and also in the county. But the first thing to do, Rosie Bates, if you just come up here and join me a minute so you can be seen. Just want to say, I mean, what we've done as a council, well, no, I'm not going to say we, or me, or I. What Rosie done for us, from last Thursday up until today, organised a jobs fair at the Corn Exchange, or as I like to call it, St George's Hall. And that jobs fair was very successful for a lot of those people at Flybe. And Rosie's told me that it was organised in 2.5 days. Over 760 Flybe employees attended, a quarter of the whole Exeter workforce. But more importantly, 58 businesses and agencies were also involved in that. And I think that just goes to show how we operate as a local authority with businesses in Exeter, stakeholders in Exeter, about collaboration, working together, drawing everybody together in times of crises, how we all pull together in Exeter. So there's a lot of skilled jobs which have gone. We're going to do a lot of work hopefully with Exeter College in relation to the academy, still work to be done there. We want to see as many of our fellow workers and citizens in Exeter Place. And just a little card from your team and from everybody to say thank you very much, Rosie, and it was much appreciated. And I think it's very important that we acknowledge members of staff who go the extra mile for all of us, and most probably a lot of employees today. And also, one of my trips today was at the Monkerton Ridge with Councillor Harvey, Councillor Wright, and Councillor Williams, learning how to plant trees. And it's not as easy as everybody thinks. There's a scientific approach to it, and I feel sure there's more trees to be planted, Councillor Harvey. And there again, that's another initiative that we're doing with the City for Trees. What's that? Something like another 2,000 that we're trying to plant. It's very, very important, and I just want people, the public, to understand what we're trying to do here in Little Old Exeter, put a few things right.
Point of order, Chair. How does leaning on a spade constitute planting a tree?
Well, I would have fallen over otherwise.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, so I'll start the agenda with, have we got any apologies?
No apologies have been received, Chair. I'm hoping Councillor Pearson might just be running late.
Okay, thank you. Is it okay that everybody else sign the minutes of the 11th of February? Okay. Declarations of interest, if you've got any, please tell me. And if there is a need for exclusion of the press, I don't believe there is at this time. None today, so Peter, you can stay with us and enjoy the whole meeting with us tonight. We have no questions from the members of the public, nor questions under standing orders to come along, and we've not got Councillor Ledbetter or Kevin Mitchell here, who are entitled to sit at these meetings and make contributions on all the items, should they choose. Not obligatory, but should they choose. So the first item on the agenda is skills strategy for Exeter, and I'll ask Councillor Harvey just to introduce the recommendations, and then Rosie Bates to give us a bit more detail. Councillor Harvey.
Okay, well, I'll start. Thank you, Chair. I'll start with the recommendations, which are to approve the skills strategy for Exeter and to approve the associated action plan to enable the skills and business manager to proceed with the outlined work programme. I'd just like to add my thanks to Rosie and for what she's done for the people who fly me today, and to add that without policies of this ilk, then Rosie would not have been able to deliver what she's delivered today. So we need to do the background work to put the policies in place which allow members of staff to go out and do the job. And I think, as Councillor Barnett said, every congratulation needs to be given to Rosie and the team for what they've done. And if Rosie could now explain the skills strategy for us, that would be great.
Thank you all. So hopefully everyone's had a chance to have a look through. So if I just quickly cover off a little bit of background and the recommendations in here, but not too much detail. Skills strategy has been pulled together using a wide range of evidence, which some of you will have sat through before, and there's some weighty appendices that go with the strategy around this. So looking at a wide range of data sets to give us that indication of how the city is performing, using a business survey as well to take feedback, doing a bit of a deeper dive as well around some of our sectors to help inform some of the work. So very much the strategy is underpinned by evidence and by looking at where those priorities should lie. And then highlighted some key areas that we want to focus on in terms of those priorities moving forward. So we know that we're going to have growth in more highly qualified jobs, so we need to make sure that people across the city are well prepared for those and have the right skills for them. Young people particularly is going to be a focus through here, so already doing a lot of work through the Careers Hub and in our schools, as was evidenced last week when we went to St Peter's to talk to some of the young people there. We really want to make sure that our young people in the city are well informed, have good quality and relevant careers advice so that they can have fulfilling careers and futures here in the city. And that's about us informing them of what those opportunities look like and working with the schools as well. Leads into apprenticeships, so we really want to work with our training provider community, the college. So we were awarded City of Apprenticeship status in National Apprenticeship Week, which is a great accolade for the city. We can use that to really drive things forward and to do more to support not just our young people apprenticeships, so for everyone, but we should be really using those as a tool for social mobility and to improve skills across the workforce. We need to work a bit harder to understand some of those hard to fill vacancies, and that's working with people like our recruitment agencies and our key businesses to understand what's not out there in terms of skills within the potential workforce. Inclusion, very broad as a topic, but working with a wide range of agencies and partners, particularly people like Job Centre Plus, CoLab, people like that, so that we are engaging with some of those who are furthest from the labour market and really moving them closer to providing those skills, entry-level job opportunities, and some of the work we're seeing through the Building Greater Exeter construction project with that, so actually targeting some of those groups to move them into the workforce. And we will do some work around our key sectors, so particularly in terms of digital, in terms of health and care, our kind of knowledge economy, professional services and construction. So quite a lot in there to focus on. We acknowledge that actually this partnership is going to be key to delivering the strategy. We pulled together an advisory group that we will work with to help drive this forward, so key business representatives, Job Centre, CoLab, the college, the university and schools representative to really make sure that what we're doing is meeting the needs of our businesses and of our people in the city. So just to highlight, yes, we've already had some key successes around skills that provide us with a platform to move forward. So City of Apprenticeships, I'll work with the Careers Hub. We recently have launched an Inspiring Girls mentoring programme with huge enthusiasm from the business community to support that. And the Building Greater Exeter programme has been running for about 18 months now and starting to build some real traction in terms of supporting our construction sector. We can use that as a bit of a blueprint for some of our other sectors, then that will be great. So a lot to do, but a lot of it, is already underway, and we have some really great support out there across the city to deliver it.
Thank you. Anybody want to say a few things? Well, yes, come on, Creed.
Yeah, because a couple of years ago, members decided to refocus your economic development work. Members decided to move away from a focus on attractive inward investment to concentrate on inclusive growth and what we do for skills, because that was seen by you as the next strategic issue that we're going to face. And I think what you've seen today with the resource that you now have at your disposal with a couple of officers in Victoria is a resource that is now focused on doing exactly what you need to do in this particular circumstance, but also in relation to where the region is going in terms of clean growth and inclusive growth. You've now got some of the infrastructure needed for our area to respond to that. And the document you got is first class, which sets out in a structured way how we will be able to contribute to the increasing challenge of we've got educated workforce, but often the ambition needs to be raised by our youngsters, and there are certain sectors where we are still struggling to get youngsters to enter into, like construction, which is a massive issue. But we didn't have this resource and skill set in the past, and now we have it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thanks, Rudy. I did actually read through the whole, including the appendices. It took a fair few hours. I was really impressed with the level of detail and all the sort of the background analytical work. There are just two things I wanted to ask you about. One is on page 24, where you've actually mentioned, given the example of the Flyby engineering apprenticeships. And I think I wanted to ask you about that because obviously they are severely affected, and are you able to say what might happen to those, given it's an example that's cited here?
So as far as we know, the college have been working really hard since last Thursday with the current apprentices. We saw most of them today at the jobs fair, engaging with other employers and looking at other opportunities. So I would like to comment, everyone's supporting them as much as they can to move them forward. I think that's the thing, the challenge we've had with this as we've been pulling it together is things change incredibly quickly. So whilst it provides a point in time, things move fast, and so it won't always be most up to date and most accurate. So, but hopefully those young people on great apprenticeship programmes will find alternative employment to be able to complete those programmes and go into the workforce qualified.
Councillor Wood.
Sorry, there was just the other page I wanted to ask, it's page 36, where we're talking about accessible world-class education, and it's talking about lifelong learning. And you've mentioned University of Exeter. One of the things, though, that did surprise me a little bit, that it was all very focused on what's available in Exeter. But I mean, I've worked for the Open University for over 30 years, and I'm surprised that given you need lots of flexible sorts of training, lots of distance learning sort of is very suitable for people already sort of in work. And I just wondered whether any thought was given to that sort of education delivery, and it wasn't just focused on one institution in Exeter.
Absolutely, I think some of the challenge around that is capturing everything that is available for people and recognising that there are different routes that will be right for some and not right for others. So whilst we've tried to capture the things that we are fully aware of, I think trying to bring all of that together and acknowledge the plethora of opportunity out there is quite challenging sometimes. But absolutely, when we get into the detail of delivering some of these things on the action plan and working with that group, and we'll look at how we should represent some of those opportunities. Absolutely. Thank you.
Councillor Morse.
I am really proud of the City Council. I'm proud of the 20 years, the economic growth that we've achieved, and the 2020 vision that achieved everything it set out to do. I've always been very proud of this. I've also been a very harsh critic towards the Chief Executive about making sure that we bring the whole of the city with us. We had great aspirations, but we had to turn around and bring everyone along. I think when I used to moan about that, and we'll deal with that, and I was always never had that much faith that it was happening. And I think this report shows that it really is, and that we are investing the skills in the people from Exeter as much as those people who choose to come and work here or live here, as time goes by. So I just want to congratulate you on having done that, and that sort of investment in future generations, but also, as Councillor Williams was saying, those lifelong learners, people like me that might be interested in going in a different direction at some point in their life. So thank you very much, and I think it's a brilliant report.
Okay, guys, I'd like to draw your attention to. Yes, I think we have to. Come on. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to read the report. I think we've talked in the past about self-employment and the gig economy, etc. Because there's a lot of overlap between self-employment and gig economy, as I know myself being self-employed consultant. So I can see that in the report you say there's further research needed to self-employment, because I think one of my big concerns that I realise that we're looking at COVID-19 and the measures that need to be taken to restrict that. If you're into self-isolation, as it were, 2 weeks at home, if you're a member of the gig economy or you're self-employed, that is a significant hit. And I know there are a lot of other industries and mechanisms for employment where not being able to come in for work for 2 weeks means you lose 2 weeks' pay. So I'm just kind of conscious that that's a vulnerable end of our employment market, and I'm pleased to see that you're going to be looking a little bit more into that to try and find out whether we can support and how we can help that sector to upskill.
So just to say on self-employment, we know that the percentage of people self-employed in the city went up an awful lot, quite sharply. What we're not sure is what those people particularly are doing, so we do need to scope out what we do and understanding that and how much we want to understand and need to understand. So I'd be pleased to talk to you about that if you'd like to be involved.
Yep. Okay, and if you look at page 30 or 31 of the strategy, in actual fact, you'll see there self-employment at 13%, and I do like to talk in infographics lately, and you can see all those numbers there about economic activity, people who are out of work, unemployment rate, self-employment, job density, salaries almost matching national salaries, skill levels, GCE, SE attainment, apprenticeship starts. Bearing in mind we have 21 apprenticeships here in the council itself. All those stats are great stats. The one stat that I think I would like to see improved is that's the stat of graduate retention 2 years ago, which was 12.2%. We need to retain more and more graduates for schools into Exeter. And I do find it's all good work, and that just remind people that we just recently concluded our budget, and we're in discussions already about next year's budget, and this is a discretionary thing that we do. This is one of the things that some people may say, don't do something else, do an alternative. I think this is important, and I'm so glad we're doing it. And Rosie, I think if you just give us a bit more information about the city of apprenticeship status. After all, we are top of the country, aren't we? And we're ahead of quite a few cities. I think we need to blow our own trumpet just a little bit about the good work that's going on in this city, praising our young people in what they're doing. I mean, we are top, aren't we?
So City of Apprenticeship status was awarded to us by City and Guilds in recognition of the Centre for Cities report that was done about 12 months ago that identified that out of the 50 plus cities that they looked at, Exeter was one of the 6 that was bucking the trend. So off the back of the introduction of the levy, we saw a significant drop-off in the number of apprenticeship starts around the country, businesses finding it more challenging to navigate the system, so that just took a hit in terms of what they were able to do recruitment-wise. But Exeter actually bucked the trend from that perspective. So a lot of recognition that actually it's not done in isolation by one college, one training provider, but actually it's about the partnership working across the city. It is about the information that gets out there to businesses, to young people, to parents, and helps them to see that apprenticeships are a really great route into employment, sustainable employment, and particularly around social mobility. So City and Guilds chose Exeter as the first city to recognise in that respect. So it was really great for us to be able to accept that during National Apprenticeship Week.
Indeed. And just before I put this to the vote, all this work you're doing, I mean, I just see there must be this big difference. Just how many of you in the department doing this?
I'd be wrong not to acknowledge the boss because she's sitting at the back. So as part of Victoria's team, so the whole skills unit sits with me, and then we've got Dawn Chamberlain who's managing the Building Greater Exeter project and some support from our data analyst apprentice on some of this activity, and that's it. But this is the point I was making about working in partnership. So actually this work has got to be done in partnership across the city with a wide range of people in order to make it happen. We couldn't do it on our own.
Thank you, Rosie, and this is about the future, and thank you for you and all of the team, by the way. So, All those in favour of the motion, the recommendations as both? Good. That's agreed unanimously.
That's agreed unanimous, Chair.
There you go. And we'll move on to item 7, and this is a decision in relation to the Port Marine Safety Code and the pathway to compliance. And I'll ask again Councillor Harvey to move or to summarise the recommendations on the pages, please.
Thank you, Chair. The recommendations are to highlight, the Executive recommends to Council the following changes to its constitution. 1, to set up a politically balanced harbour board, council committee, comprising of 6 elected members and 6 externally appointed members, and 2, to agree the terms of reference for the board as follows. I'm very glad the leader said I could summarise these because there are a number of them.
2-3 is informal, isn't it?
2-3, to agree expenditure of £25,000 on a harbour patrol vessel following contributions from East Devon District Council of £15,000 and Exeter Town Council of £10,000. So what this is about is this may be an area where we haven't paid quite so much attention over the last few years. We're in fact responsible for looking at the water from just upstream of Brindle on the Exe all the way out to a mile beyond Exmouth under some various historic acts, the 1840 Act and the 1847 Act, and we haven't necessarily followed all of the procedures. In today's turbulent world, we feel that we're possibly a little bit exposed, so we need to redress that balance by setting up a properly constituted harbour board. The 6 external members we are expecting and hoping to bring with them external skills and expertise in marine and river safety and operation. We have plenty of professional expertise, having just approved the harbour master, but I think our councillors are to some extent not fully appraised of all the nuances that may occur with this. So I'd like to ask Steve Carnell, who's the manager of the service, to talk a bit more about where we're going with this. Steve.
Thanks, Dave. Yes, about a year ago, we undertook the first step on this journey to compliance, and as the Port Authority, we've got to prove we are a competent Port Authority. We're doing things safely, we're doing things properly. The first step towards that was to appoint a harbour master last year, so we invested in that, and we're already seeing a difference. So he's done some great work in terms of educating users on the water, in terms of winning hearts and minds around the estuary and the canal side, etc. And I think that's evidenced by the fact that both East Devon District Council and Exeter Town Council have now seen themselves able to release some funds to put towards our capital money towards a harbour patrol club. So the next stages, as outlined here, are to form a harbour board. That's seen as one of the fundamental stepping stones to compliance, to have a harbour board, but that is something that is required to do. We are required to do by the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency. They will not sign us off as competent until we have the correct governance in place. As David alluded to, we missed a trick back in 1847 by not instigating some work we should have done, which has now caused us a bit of an issue. Basically, it affects our ability to enforce against all types of craft used in the estuary. So we are authorised to make decisions on ships, as laid out in the Act, but not on the sort of vessels that are causing us problems these days. Those are the smaller personal watercraft type issues, so people on jet skis and things like that. So one of the first tasks of the Harbour Board will be to look at what we need to do to ensure we have the correct legal powers and instigate all the necessary acts to allow us to not only advise and educate, but if it comes to it, to be able to back that up with solid enforcement of people breaking the rules and becoming a danger to themselves and other users of the waterways.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Anybody want to make a comment? Councillor Gussain?
I've got a question here about the harbour board. I understand that the internal board and external one. I understand that the external one is not non-salaried, but the internal one is. I just wanted to it's not non-salaried, the internal one. The internal
It's
members of
the
the
same board, so it'll be a 50-50 split. There'll be elected members.
Yeah.
On that, as well as co-opted members who will bring with them, as David explained, some experience, knowledge, skill, which will be useful in the format of the governance of the waterways.
But will these members be paid?
No, there'll be no salaries. We've put a small amount of money aside, £18,000 per year, to provide expenses for these people if they need to get trained into meetings and things like that. So it's just a small sum to provide expenses.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I was wondering if the council has got to put up more money for salaries in this case.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Wright.
Sorry, could you please just, you've just said it was £18,000, the report says £1,800.
Sorry, 1,800, sorry, my 1,800.
Yeah.
You're flying a room from Italy.
So it was first class trade trust, and now it is.
Anybody else? Okay, so we'll put those recommendations to the vote. All those in favour of recommendations, please show. Thank you very much.
That's unanimous vote, Chair.
Thank you. And now for item 8, which is the parking tariffs for 2020. Councillor Harvey, can you to introduce the recommendations first, please?
Thank you, Chair. So the recommendations are: 1, to amend the car parking places order 2014 as follows, and that follows a list which you all have. And it's quite complicated, I'm not going to read it through. Secondly, to include the requirement for all vehicles parking in the Exeter City Council car parks to hold a valid vehicle tax and administrative transport test. And 2.3, to include the access road into Haven Road 2 and Haven Road 3 car parks within the parking places order. Members will recall that this is car parking tariffs are a considerable portion of the City Council disposable income, and the challenge, and it are also a tool to combat congestion and therefore contribute to the carbon neutral agenda by 2030. This is a considerable balancing act on behalf of officers to define a new tariff each year. Last year we were spectacularly successful in that we increased our income by 7.5% and decreased traffic into our car parks by 7.5%, and within that we also held the footfall within the city centre, because we also feel it important and actually vital to demonstrate a vibrant and powerful city centre. So we held the footfall very close indeed to what it had been in previous years. So I think without any further ado, I'll ask Steve, who's the responsible officer, to talk us through the changes.
That's okay. So this report seeks to sort of tread that fine line between attempting to reduce car use, increasing income, and doing that without a detrimental effect to the city centre. As David has said, we achieved that last year. I think there's a realisation that we cannot keep doing that by simply increasing tariffs year after year in isolation. And the report does talk about wider greener initiatives and options. But in terms of the recommendation, we're looking to provide free residential permits for those who fall into that criteria for electric vehicles. We are seeking to make the minimum stay 2 hours to encourage people to stay longer and enjoy the city more. But in the main, the increases are 10 pence on most tariffs across the board. So it's aimed with these modest increases that we increase income and we continue with that move towards deterring car use where we can and where alternatives are available.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Any contributions from the floor? Councillor Word.
Thank you. Quite conscious that this is really a very difficult balancing act, and I'm really pleased to hear that we've kind of achieved our key objectives last year: an increase in income, which is crucial for Exeter sustained services, a reduction in cars coming into the city centre and parking off, and we didn't damage the vibrant city centre significantly by those changes. So hopefully we'll achieve the same fine balancing act again. I notice in the table it shows a 5% modal change, so that's expecting 5% reduction in vehicles parking in our parking, which is great. As you've said, what we're talking about here for most visitors to the centre, most people parking in our car parks, 10p extra. Because I do, as all councillors do, receive a fair bit of communication around car parking, and one would think that the charges were being put up by £10, but actually 10p. If you really want to point that out. I think the other thing is the reduction or the removal of the 1 hour band. I think I heard you say previously that part of the reason for that was to avoid repeat trips in. So during a working week, as it were, somebody might come in 2 or 3 times and use our road, pump out the emissions, park off. We get the fee. That's great. They come down 3 times, we get 3 hourly fees. But if they can come down and they're kind of forced, if you like, to pay for 2 hours, you might do it all in one visit. Is that the kind of logic behind it?
Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think this really is important, and as we've already been indicating, actually reducing the carbon footprint of the entire city is not going to be easy, while at the same time maintaining the important income that we get. And I think this just illustrates how difficult it is, and you know, our residents and employers across the city have to realise that if we are going to hit our targets of by 2030, we have all got to think seriously about how we get around in the city, whether actually it's more sensible to buy a day rider ticket and come in on the bus rather than being a single person in a car driving into town and then paying for parking and being the single person in the car driving out again, because that is part of the congestion. You know, if we're doing this, and I do it myself, we are part of the problem, and we all have to accept that responsibility and make those important changes. So I hope that this will have that desired effect in a way that you know, yes, it potentially makes people think, but isn't going to make their lives hugely and significantly difficult in the short term. In the long term, we may have to, you know, have to do even more drastic things. But let's try this and see how we get on. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Hussain?
I've got a question. Do we have anything to, any kind of tariff or any kind of encouragement to, especially for electric vehicles, instead of just using the one that increase the emissions of carbon dioxide?
Okay,
Are we doing anything to encourage the use of EV?
Okay, we provide a number of EV points in some of our car parks. We're looking at expanding the number of those we provide, and what we do is we allow people to free use of electricity. So they will still pay the parking tariff, but they will gain the benefit of being able to, at no cost to themselves, additional cost to themselves, recharge their vehicle.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I just want to say before we go to the vote, I've looked up what hike means, a price hike, and it's quite substantial. And if you look at the strategy in which we've looked at it by the council officers, and when it comes to all day, yes, we have increased the all day charges within the premium car parks, where we would prefer people to come in for short visits or for if they do longer visits, and those longer visits of people coming in for 6 or 7 hours, we've increased the price by 10p. For 80,000 users, we've not increased the charges at all, as opposed to the 10,000 where they have been hiked up. So you need to look at the old package, and I feel sure that people will, and it's needed. The other thing is, in our car parks, the cars coming in are emitted something like 3,800 tonnes of carbon a year. We've reduced that by 285 in the first tranche, and we're aiming with a 5% reduction to reduce it by something like 190 tonnes of carbon. We cannot get away from that, as Councillor Sutton said, what we need to do to go forward. So it is a balancing act that we have to do as we turn this city carbon neutral, and we have to look at a different source of funding, and that's what we intend to do. So with all that in mind, I'll put the recommendations to you all. All those in favour of the recommendations, please show.
That's unanimous vote, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. And we go on to item 9, and this is the Lord Mayoralty. And I would like to propose for the next municipal year that Councillor Sheldon be nominated as the Lord Mayor-elect for 2021 for the municipal year, and Councillor Sills be nominated as Deputy Lord Mayor-elect for 2021. Those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. It's 8 minutes past 6. It's one of the shortest, but just to remind ourselves, we did do quite a significant item here tonight, which is very important. Thank you for attending.
Comedy.